Hey, everybody. Welcome to Be a Better Human, episode 9. This is Ryan Schroyens, your host, along with Luke Westlake. Welcome here, Luke.
Thank you, sir.
And tonight we have ChrisWyllie, the game changer, brain transformation specialist. Thank you, Chris, for coming on the show.
My guys, pleasure to be on here. I'm all about being a better human. I love you guys. I love this podcast. And it was time to come on.
Yeah, man. We're excited. This is great. This podcast is sponsored by Rode Microphones. And as we say each and every episode, coming from me and Luke, what you'll hear tonight is non-medical. It is what has worked for us. Please take with it what you will for yourself. However, Mr. Wyllie is a brain transformation specialist and has done much schooling and many things that he'll talk about in a little bit here. So you can definitely feel free to get into the chat. Feel free to ask lots of questions. We're very excited to get to a lot of questions tonight with Chris. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that have questions about anxiety and depression and their how to maximize their mind and their brain. So get those questions rolling, please, in the chat, and we'll make sure that Luke's going to moderate that. We'll make sure we get to that. As every episode, we're going to get to some things that are real and raw, and we hope that you guys will go along with us, give us some feedback. Chris is from Markham, Ontario. For those of you tuning in from around the world, it's near Toronto, Ontario, a little suburb of Toronto in the northeast end, northwest end. Sorry, my bad. And recently, you were on Big Brother Canada, season 8.
I was.
So people can tune in to Big Brother and check out the amazing ChrisWyllie and his amazing magic that you pulled off on that show. How was the show, by the way?
Yeah, well, it was. I've been quarantined, Ryan, for since February, mid-February. I've been quarantined in preparation for this show, which. Going in, it's reality TV, but what most people don't realize is that show, we are completely cut off from reality. No phones, no contact. We're sequestered for a period of time beforehand where we have no contact. It almost prepares you for the show. And then when you're in the house, I was in there with 15 other people. We didn't even know what time it was. So we would go outside and check where the sun was and try to dial down the exact time. And As soon as we moved, production would come in, and I'm not allowed to talk about production, but they'd come in and mess the time up. And it was quite an experience. And, luckily for me, I have so much training with being able to control my own mind and those automated type responses in competitions. And this was a game where people are lying, manipulating left, right, and center behind everyone's back. If you're not lying, you're not playing the game. So Anxiety was at an all-time high. So being in there, it was like the energy from the universe with the whole coronavirus situation was being transmuted through the walls of Big Brother house, and everyone inside was going bad shit crazy. So I was giving people motivational pep talks each and every day, and having to work on myself first because my butt was on the line the first week there. So for me, I was on the way up. But it was a really awesome opportunity to have be stripped away from everyday life and just be in a situation where it's you, your thoughts, and 15 other people, and it really gave me a chance to reconnect with meditation, with focus, with a lot of the practices and things I'd used to develop myself, gave me a chance to get back to it, rekindle that love and that magic and use it like I had to. I was sleep deprived in there. I was bunking with the other guy. Me and him were the worst sleepers in the house. So I didn't sleep a wink the first 4 nights. Wow. And, talk about, the food we had to eat. Ryan, the amount of food that we were portioned to eat for a whole week is the amount I personally eat. And that's how much 16 people had to eat.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I'm it was day 3 and I have this memory comp. And if I don't win this mental comp, I'm basically going home because everyone wants a guy like me out because I'm a big threat, physically and stuff. So it works against you in the game. So I got a chance on live TV to do a little Shaolin meditation to get people going, what the bleep is this guy doing? But it worked.
That's absolutely. Well, it sounds like you made a bunch of friends, and it sounds like the people that run in the show are pretty awesome. So that's cool. That's a great experience.
The production was amazing. It was an incredible, top-notch pro. And I made lifelong friends in there. There was even the one guy, he was there for 5 days only, and we had a chance, we knew each other for years. So it was a really cool experience. So
That's awesome.
Grateful for it. And they got to paint me a little bit as kind of the evil brain mastermind villain. I want you guys to know, Canada, if you do watch that show, it's all love, it's all passion. And everything we're going to talk about here today is all based on my own personal experience, which has led me on this journey to help figure out how the brain works and how to optimize it. So it's an
Absolutely.
important piece to being a better human.
So why don't we get into sort of how you came to be here? Um, Luke, I'll let you jump in here, but I'll sort of intro it. So I met Chris through Luke, and Chris and Luke have known each other for a little bit longer than that, obviously. And I know, Luke, you can speak to some of the things that Chris helped you with. Um, and I know we've mentioned you, Chris, in every episode because you've had such an impact on not only Luke but myself. I've actually said several times in the last few days to some people I was talking to, even someone today, who hopefully is tuning in from Sarnia, Ontario. I was saying that you helped me unlock the reading, among other things. When I came to see you, I didn't really like reading, and you helped me turn that around. And the other thing is that I didn't realize certain aspects about my brain, which you helped me realize as well. I thought that they were negative things, or I was told they were negative things when I was in school, and they tried to put me in the slow kids lane, and that didn't really work out, and they couldn't quite figure out what was going on with me. But once you got me on the scan there, and we figured it out,
Perpetual alpha trance. I was jealous. The amount of alpha your brain was generating, Ryan. You were able, I was like, Ryan's kind of like the creative guy. He solves the solution, big picture, figures things out, right? And the amount of alpha you had in your brain, my friend, that is something to be proud of. So I think that stands to this day the most alpha I've seen on a brain. And I don't even know how much meditation you've done. I can only imagine if you amp up your meditation, how much alpha you get going. So just one key thing is everything that could be viewed as a negative when it comes to the brain and mind also has a really powerful positive function. So that's something we're going to get into.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that. That's what you helped with me sort of realize with my own brain, right? But it was an amazing experience, and I'm blessed to have you in my life, and we're blessed to have you on the show to help people in their lives. And Luke, you met Chris obviously quite a bit before I did. You introduced me to Chris. You want to just give everybody sort of a Cole's notes on sort of how Chris helped you?
Yeah, well, for a number of years, I've been dealing with anxiety, and on and off, been going to different talk therapists for about 10 years. And while I learned a lot of stuff and it was very interesting, I never got to the point where the anxiety was actually dealt with or gone. So I kept saying at the end of the day to my therapist is like, okay, well, this is interesting and I'm learning a lot, but when do I actually get rid of the anxiety? And then fast forward a little bit to meeting Chris. I met him through a mutual musician that I was working with. And so I met with Chris, and right away he did a brain map, found that I had a concussion top left side of my head, which I had been, the trauma of which I had been holding on to since I was about 10 years old or so. And so he helped me get hooked up with some choline supplement. We did some neurofeedback. And then another session afterwards, we had he had basically gone down the rabbit hole with learning neurolinguistic programming, NLP, and we did a 45-minute session. And this is actually we streamed it live on Facebook, and we've got it on. I think it's on my YouTube page. It might be on Chris's YouTube page as well. But we did a 45-minute session to deal with the anxiety. And after the 45-minute session, it's never come back. So that's, just one of the ways that Chris has helped me. And over the years, kind of working side by side with Chris, he's helped me with diet. He's helped me with, a number of different things just to optimize the brain. Before I saw Chris, I was actually terrified of speaking in public or speaking on camera. So we can blame Chris for.
I remember that.
Yeah. So Chris helped me out a great deal with that, and now here I am. A few years later, I've got a family. I've got live in a beautiful place, and we're free, and we're able to kind of do what we want, and like now I get to help him help other people. So it's it's very karmic in a way.
Absolutely.
I think one of the beautiful things is both Luke and I have been able to see each other's evolution simultaneously. So I remember Luke when I first saw him, and he wasn't in a great space. I was still like down here business wise and working my way up. And I was like, man, just come to my place for 2 days. And I work with Luke. Luke did work with me. He made this, amazing Love and Libido Mocha beverage thing together. We had an amazing session together. And that was before Luke had even met Anna. Even the thought of a family came up. And I remember meeting Luke, and I remember you, Luke, your energy was like all over the place. And now you're like the opposite, man. You're rooted, you're grounded, solid. And so it was really cool. It's really cool to see your growth and all that, all the magic that's happened since we first met. And on the flip side, Luke's been able to see me from when I was down here and still in my baby stages, and to see the evolution and growth. And, we tour together, we do events together. And so I think more than anyone, Luke's really had the chance to get the inside look at, what I can do for people in the work that we've done together to help people. And I've been able to see in him just amazing growth. So, I love you both, and you guys are both amazing. I actually enjoy just sitting back watching you guys on the podcast, seeing you guys, and because you guys are both, incredibly talented guys in your own right. So,
Thanks,
and that's the biggest thing is it takes a team, it takes a group of individuals working together, supporting each other, help us grow and evolve and get better and reach where we're meant to go. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. I appreciate the kind words. That's amazing. Why don't you give people a little, synopsis of how you came to be where you are now? Like, what was your journey to get to where you are now?
So for me, I've always been like a triple type A, determined, super high expectation guy. My plan was to go to law school, do a business law degree, Harvard, Yale. Those were basically the only two schools for me I was considering. And basically had a full ride scholarship lined up to some of these schools, had like a 4.9 GPA in university. But the thing was, my entire life is I always dealt with really bad anxiety and panic attacks. And growing up, when I was in high school, I had the emotional support of like my grandmother. I'd go hang out, study with Naomi. But now you're in university, you don't have that support. And for me, the anxiety, the panic attacks got worse. I had 3 straight panic attacks, was actually hospitalized. At the meantime, I also had friends who were in upper year medical school. And if you guys don't know, so many students are abusing these stimulants, these things like Ritalin, Adderall, like they're absolute Skittles, popping one after another, after another, after another. So I figured, hey, I'll give it a try. I'm getting anxiety attacks. I'll take one of these things and I'll just be like a laser beam for 3 straight hours and, get these exams done. And for me, what happened was it sent my brain overboard. And of course, I was relying on bro science. So I didn't have the neuroscience knowledge at the time. I didn't know what neurotransmitters I was working on. And I once, in university, in an exam based on the recommendations of my bros, I had 100 milligrams of Ritalin in my system on an economics exam in third year university. Man, my head was spinning out of my mind. I was like, literally like those movies where you see the guy just high as could be on drugs. And I'm grabbing one of the teaching assistants. I'm like, I can't focus right now.
Wow.
And that's what speed, and that's what these, things like Ritalin and Adderall, they are, is they're stimulants. They're basically like speed. And I even had one friend take so much speed before an exam, he wrote his name 40 times on the paper.
Oh, jeez.
and the professor after the exam says, "Hey, Johnny, how do you think you did on the exam?" And Johnny goes, "Well, I think I did pretty good." And then he shows him the exam, and his name is written 40 times. He goes, "You think you did good, eh, Johnny?" So it's a rampant problem. For me, it sent me overboard. And I ended up shifting into behaviors. I had self-image problems, did a lot of behaviors, a lot of really dumb stuff that I'm not proud of, that I don't even think about. It was like it was another person. But it was this out of control cycle of anxiety, panic attacks, addiction, and led me being hospitalized in that hospital bed. And in that moment, I just looked at all the difficulty I was having, all the expectations. I said, no, this isn't working. Enough is enough of this. So I ended up pursuing what I was really passionate about, which was psychology, neuroscience, self-development. So I switched my degree to one from business to one in neuroscience and psychology. Then I was off to the races, learning everything possible, how to optimize my own brain. And if we have a lot of London listeners here, what happened is the anxiety was creating such strong cluster headaches and migraines for me, which created tension throughout the whole body. So the brain, the mind, the body, it's totally all connected and influences each other. So I was getting like massages like 2 or 3 times a week just to get rid of some of the cluster migraines from the anxiety. And one day, the massage therapist I was seeing ended up switching to a new clinic. I walk into this new clinic and I see this doctor working on this little boy with sensors attached to his head. And I'm thinking, geez, what's that? And it's a local doctor, one of my best friends. His name's Dr. Peter Deshane. He's local in London. He was working on his autistic son, doing early forms of neurofeedback on his brain. And the next day I was in there doing neurofeedback on my brain. And before you know it, I had a new addiction. My new addiction was optimizing my brain. So I did hyperbaric therapy, neurofeedback, EEGs, and I ended up doing some work with Dr. Deshane in his clinic while in university. Long story short, ended up turning into tons and tons of clients, my own business. At 22 years old, a company in the US saw one of my brain nutrition videos. They brought me to Atlantis, Bahamas to speak. In that moment, I'm 22, no beard. I look like an absolute kid. I look like I'm 17 years old, speaking to 50-year-old executives. And the first thing I point out is, you may be wondering why a kid who looks like he's 17 is talking to you on your sales training vacation. Well, maybe I figured a few things out about how to optimize your productivity and focus. You tired of being stressed? Tired of feel bad? Okay. All it takes is 40 minutes of your time. And at that moment, I was convinced I was meant to, be entrepreneurial and take my own path, at which point I led to apprenticeships, learning from some of the experts themselves directly. And I learned from a neurosurgeon in the US named Dr. Jack Cruz, taught me a lot. Then I went and apprenticed with Dr. Richard Bandler, and I guess you could kind of say I'm his protege, you could say, in some sense, where I spent a few years with him. Because what happened was, Ryan, I was doing all this really cool brain work with neurofeedback. We'd measure the brain waves and we'd say, okay, someone's brain is completely balanced. You check their blood chemistry levels. Okay, those markers are balanced too. But hey, this person still keeps sticking, the drugs up their nose or in their mouth.
Right.
And their brain is balanced. So for me, or the person still gets anxiety, or they still manage to get themselves depressed. And this is a very common thing. So that got me interested in how can we reprogram the mind and behavior. And now I kind of do it all, and with a huge emphasis on reprogramming the mind and behavior using your mind itself. Because it's the one thing, whether you're thrown on the TV show Survivor, whether you're on a TV show Big Brother, whether you're in a cave meditating in the Himalayas, the one thing you can count on being there is you and your mind. And it is the greatest skill and technology that you need to master. And it will unlock all the performance that you need. So that's what I've really, really been focusing on. So that's long story short. Everything I do today, I personally used, experimented on myself, deep in the neurotechnologies, deep in the nutrition, then getting into the applied psychology, neuroplasticity, neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis type tactics to, try to, create magic for people and things that a lot of people don't believe is possible. A lot of people don't believe that you can, get rid of depression or get rid of anxiety, or people think that, hey, you know what? I have a bad memory. I'm going to have a bad memory for life. And I go, wait a minute. How do you know you have a bad memory? And they go, well, you know what? Let me tell you, Chris, I remember that I forget Oh my goodness, I forget my keys. I forget birthdays. I forget appointments. Oh my goodness. Family gatherings, forget about it. Books I got to read, forget about it. Studies, forget about it. Next thing you know, they got a list of 20 items that they remember, they forget, which is a bit of a paradox when you think about it.
It is.
And I go, wait a minute, are you guys watching this? You guys suffer from anxiety? I bet you could tell me the exact time, the exact places, when and where you're going to be anxious in the future. Can't you?
Yep.
Your brain's got it all planned out, ladies and gentlemen, which means it ain't random, it's systematic. And if it's predictable, you can change it. So we're going to get into some practical techniques how to do that tonight.
Yeah, let's do it. So speaking of things that people have a hard time believing in, there's a lot of craziness going on in the world right now. And we've all been watching it, and when you were in the Big Brother house, you missed kind of the first part of it, right? So you came out, you went up, you went to the cottage, and you've kind of been hanging out and been in the beginning, I'm sure, soaking up, figuring out what all happened while you're in the house, right? And so now, speaking of things that people have a hard time believing, we're gonna help shed some light on some of that tonight. Our first thing we want to talk about, ending anxiety forever in minutes, but it really, we would rather sort of take it along. I'd like to take it along the lines of a couple of things that I'm really passionate about. So I've been seeing a lot of people posting things online on social media. I've been seeing a lot of comments, and one of the things that troubles me is that there's people in my life that I've known in some cases almost my whole life. And, whether they're people from high school or colleagues in the industry I'm in or customers of mine that have been with me for over 20 years. And I'm noticing that they're posting comments, not necessarily just sharing, narrative journalism pieces, but they're posting comments that I'm like, this is not them. Like, this is someone else. This is very bizarre. This is the way they're talking. It's not how they normally talk. And I can tell that in a way they're a bit scared. And I think, at some level, without understanding what's going on, because there's very little real, sort of data coming out from anywhere right now. I think everybody's a bit scared of what's going on in some way or some form. And so I'd like you to speak to us about how we're being influenced right now, because there's positive and negative to anything. Again, I always say there's a reason why I have a yin and a yang behind me, right? So there's positive and negative to everything. Some people want to think that certain things are positive, other people want to think that certain things are negative. But one of the common things I see out there is, oh, you got to believe the scientists. Well, it just so happens we have someone that can talk about the neuro side of it right here, right now. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how are we being influenced? How are our minds being influenced throughout this thing with what we're experiencing? Because I'm certain that that's what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing are people who I've known my whole life that all of a sudden started turning on the television or the radio or Facebook or whatever it is. They started turning it on, and now they're, they got nothing better to do. So they're sitting on the couch for 6 to 7 hours a day plus, and they're watching this, and it's just perpetuating. And I'd like your advice on what we're seeing here.
Yeah. Well, the first thing to expect, if you're watching this and you're not feeling like yourself and you're dealing with the anxiety and fear, you're not going to be acting like yourself, because there's a state of mass anxiety, mass paranoia, which is going to cause you to go into a state other than your normal, ordinary state. So you're going to say things, think things, feel things that you don't normally. So the one thing I would suggest to you guys is, if you're feeling the stress, if you're feeling that fear and anxiety, is try not to take it too seriously, or even take any mistakes you do too seriously. Keep your sense of humor, keep your lightness, because that's really the only thing you can do. Is if your mind and body are in the calmest, most relaxed state possible, it's going to give you the best odds to heal if your body somehow did get the COVID virus inside you, because your body's robust, it's balanced, it's calm. If you're all stressed, if you're anxious, and that's where, the anxiety and fear is something that is programmed into us from a very young age. And there's two ways to motivate ourselves. Number one is moving away from bad things happening. And the other one is moving towards things that you want. Now, the one that's so prevalent is moving away from bad things happening. So, your parents tell you not to get in front of a group and speak because you might overextend yourself. You might embarrass yourself. Or, everything we see on the news is pointing out to our brains, bad thing here, bad thing there, bad thing there, bad thing there. So we're constantly in a state of moving away from negative states that we don't want. We go to the doctor's office and we get high blood pressure medication to move away from a state of high blood pressure. We go to a psychiatrist to get anti-anxiety medication to move away from a state of anti-anxiety, but we're not moving towards desired states, desired situations that we want. So even though we're in a situation that is extremely difficult, extremely alarming, and alerts you to your mortality as a human being, that doesn't mean that you can't get through it as quickly as possible and keep yourself focused on how you can leverage the moment, leverage the opportunity, and move forward. So fundamentally, as human beings in our society, is we are wired to move away from bad things happening. And if we keep doing that our entire lives, it's going to cause us never to get that sense of fulfillment and happiness that comes when you consciously think about what you want and you move towards it. So that's one thing I could encourage the viewers today is, in terms of being a better human, is you observe human behavior, and everyone is always moving away bad things happening. We don't want to fail the test, so that's why we're going to procrastinate to the last minute, and then finally enough stress builds up, you do the test. But if you can start programming yourself to move towards behaviors, results, and stuff that you want, it's going to put you miles ahead. And again, bad shit's going to happen in life. Viral infections are going to happen in life, engineered or not, conspiracy theory or not. You still have to protect your own brain and mind and get through it as easily as possible. So that's the key piece with motivation. Now, the second key piece that's so important, because I know, we have a really cool spiritual crowd. We have people into psychology, people into self-development, people who maybe, haven't even dug down the rabbit hole. But here's the thing. The best example is, let's say you start noticing pattern 1111. Then you think to yourself, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm an enlightened. Then you look and you see, oh my God, 1234. And I see 222. Holy smokes. Then I see 333. And you start noticing all these patterns and you go, am I enlightened? Or is my brain just noticing a pattern that is now registering? Now, we've all had the experience of buying a car, and then lo and behold, holy smokes, we start seeing those bloody cars everywhere. And you start wondering, where the hell did all these cars come from?
True.
And then you think, hey, were these cars, did they just plop down from Pluto, or were they there all along? And they were there all along. It's just we weren't seeing them because we didn't have that pattern. It wasn't personally important. So this gets us to the media. So our brain is a pattern recognizing machine, right? So that's where the example with the numbers, you see the pattern once, you're thinking about it. Now your brain, both consciously and unconsciously, is going to show you everywhere. And you start seeing it. Now, it's great if you have all these self-fulfilling beliefs that's, hey, I'm starting to become more self-aware, more enlightened. That's wonderful. Here's the thing. And this is why it can be very hard to get ideas out of your mind once they take hold. Because what happens is, if you get an idea in your mind, suddenly your brain starts showing you all the things connected to that idea, right? Like the anxiety about stuff going bad. Then you start thinking about, hey, what about the family? What about this? What about that? And the brain, it starts showing everywhere. Now, when it comes to the media, when you put on CP24, you guys, I know we see one after the other. It's like, oh my God, autistic children, group of autistic children, language improves by 30%. Oh my good, people hanging out, they're having the best time ever. Oh my God, people are talking about be a better human, be the best you can be, consciousness, evolving, growing. We see all that stuff on CP24 and on the news, right?
No.
Hell no.
No.
Everything we see is all the worst events that are happening. So what that does is it programs your brain to look for the pattern of what can go wrong, and we constantly see it everywhere. So this is where, the media does do a good job of helping our brain to super focus on the negative by constantly showing us that pattern. You put on a newspaper, and what sells? The worst tragedy happening. And then our brain, we start seeing it everywhere. So that is one fundamental reason why, anxiety, fear, and why we're noticing these things. And why, your brain may be pointing out even, it could even infiltrate your relationships with other people, why you're trained to look for what's wrong in other people, because that's the way your brain's been trained from the very beginning. And then the second piece is this applies to self-development, applies to therapy, applies to chiropractors watching this, applies to dentists, coaches watching this. You work with a client, and you are a good therapist. You are a good coach, you're a good therapist, you're a good chiropractor. And boy, you get those clients, you get them 95% better. And oh my goodness, it's like you're doing magic. You're literally performing miracles. You get this person 95% better. But then they come back, and what do they point out? They point out the 5%. The client comes in, he goes, you know what, doc, when I put my arm like this and lie against the thing, I still get the pain in my shoulder, And the doctor's looking at him, well, why would you even sit like that? Because we're trained our minds to look for what's wrong. And this negative orientation starts in the school system, where you get this big X for everything you did wrong. And we're constantly, from the very beginning, all the things we did wrong were pointed out. So it sets up this negative tracking system, which could drive therapists and coaches nuts. So the first step to change a behavior is you need to set up a new tracking system where you're measuring the exact positive desired change and your progress towards it. So like I work with a kid who pees the bed. Anxiety related, sure. And all I did was set it up into a game where each night he made less of the bed wet than the night before. So he had a direction to move towards. Before, he's not peeing the bed anymore.
That's awesome.
So you want to make sure that you set up a tracking system towards where you want to go and not where you don't want to go, if that makes sense. And
absolutely.
You got to understand that people's natural tendency is going to be to look for what's wrong. So if you're a savvy hypnotist, you have to make it the more people look for what's wrong, the more their brain's programmed to look for what's right. And we're going to start with some conscious techniques to start doing on yourself, because that's where you want to start. So those are two fundamental reasons why we are programmed into fear, into viewing the negative, because number one, pattern recognition, and number two, our minds have been trained to look for what's wrong. So, and again, when you go see your general doctor, he's not going in. See, the problem is when I go to my doctor, he says, tell me about myself. I start telling him about all the best stuff that are happening. I go, doc, you won't believe the successes I'm having working with autistic children. Oh my gosh, we are rocking. Oh my God, let me tell you about the phobics. We went riding up and down the CN Tower 2 weeks ago. And, and he's not quite prepared for that, right? Because he wants me to talk about my mother and what's wrong and stuff. So I start going, my mom, oh my goodness, she's an MD. And he goes, medical doctor? And I go, oh no, manic depressive. And he goes, oh really? I go, no, I'm just playing. And he says, well, tell me about you. And he asked me if I have any allergies. I go, yep, I'm allergic to all medications. So I actually enjoy my doctor's visits. I ended up having a good time. They get tired of my shtick. They stop asking those questions.
Yeah, they know what's coming.
They just ask me what I need.
So what are some of the steps, Chris, that people can take to try to experience less anxiety, less fear, less stress with regards to because everybody wants to know what's going on. We watch the PM, in Canada, people want to watch the president in the United States. There's people tuning in from all over the world. So they have leaders that they want to get information from, even if it's what's going on with opening and closing their businesses or so on. So they need to stay up to date on actual news as opposed to narrative journalism. But some of the stuff that's talked about, they still feel that fear and that anxiety and that. So what are some of the steps these people watching can do?
There's two sides. Number one is on the external side, is find leaders, influencers who are showcasing the kind of behaviors, charisma, focus, skills, and states that you want. Because by watching them and watching them speak, watching their mannerisms, your brain, that's how we learn, is we imitate, and we actually have mirror neurons which fire when we watch someone as if we're doing it ourselves. So number one is you want to start getting some models who you want to start to behave like, who you want to rub off on you. So identify a good 3 to 5 of those. I mean, we have all the time in the world now for social media, for television. Find 3 to 5 influencers whose behavior, mindset resonates with you, or someone who you want to be more like. Watch them speak. So that's where you get your information. That's where you're training your mind externally. Then on the internal side, as you mentioned neuro-linguistic programming. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions as to what neuro-linguistic programming really is. And what it basically is a methodology that is basically the technology of our mind and how we can engineer mental and behavioral changes in both our thinking patterns, our behavioral patterns, and how our brain works. So neuro-linguistic programming is a set of methodology and skills and tools to be able to consciously reprogram how you think, but also those unconscious behavioral patterns. Because let's face it, when people get anxious and anxiety, it's not like they're consciously doing it to themselves on purpose. It's just an automated learned nervous habit. So NLP is a methodology that allows us to reprogram those behaviors and thinking patterns. So anxiety, I've actually created an official definition to break it down what it is anxiety basically is a state, which means it's a transient mental, physical, physiological state produced by particular thoughts, both conscious that you're aware of in the moment and unconscious, that generate feelings in your body that inhibit your well-being or performance in some way. So I'll break that down. Anxiety is a state. It's something you do. It's not like something you have like a Buick. Ryan, you can't, if you go, I have anxiety, you can't just put it out on the table and we can observe your anxiety in front of us, okay? It's something you do, and it's a state, which means if it's a state, it means it's limited to that state. So what do you need to do? Change your state. How can you do that? Well, of course, I do things like NLP and hypnosis, but you can use music, you can use nature, you can use exercise, you can use meditation, you can use yoga. These are vehicles to help you change your state. So anxiety, it's not like something that's who you are. It's just something you're doing, which means when you change your state, it can make it so that you're no longer anxious. And then breaking it down to being generated by particular thoughts. So every brain is unique. Ryan's brain's unique. Luke's brain's unique. All the BeABetterHumans watching this, brains are unique. But that said, there's a basic structure and permutations that all our minds follow and go through to produce our thoughts. All our thoughts are coded in 3 systems. The first 2 systems are the visual system and auditory system that produce how you feel. So anyone who's anxious is making some sort of pictures or mental movies and saying stuff to themselves. And it might not even be their voice. It could be like a grade 3 teacher's voice who said they're not enough, or their parents' voice. God forbid, can't get away from mom. That voice is going to stay with you forever. Producing the feelings in your body that produce that state. So if someone asks you, hey, what's a state? I hear all these self-development guys saying, change your state, do this to your state, do that to your state. Your state is just the particular thoughts, visual, auditory, and feelings that you're experiencing in your body in one moment. So in essence, neuro-linguistic programming and what I do is just about changing what someone is doing consciously and unconsciously to change their state, to change how they feel, and therefore change their behavior. So, and then of course, in order for something to be classified as anxiety, it has to somehow inhibit well-being or performance in some way. Because here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, people look at anxiety as if it's a bad thing. But let me tell you, if I gave you the get rid of anxiety pill forever, your motivation, your productivity would be screwed. 95% of people procrastinate. That means they wait to the last minute till they build up enough anxiety and stress to motivate themselves to do things. So if we just get rid of anxiety, if you just start going nuts and start smoking dope left, right, and center, oh, sure, you might feel relaxed, you might sleep better, but that's the exact mental process that you use to motivate yourself and get stuff done. So anxiety is a very powerful thing that can propel behavior, right? You're anxious about getting a heart attack, so that's why you get to the gym and work out 5 days a week, right? If you weren't anxious about that, if you're going, heart attack, no big deal. Let's just, let's have another smoke, Oh, sure, throw on some extra butter, the non-grass-fed one, because the grass-fed one's fine, but no, we can't have that. We'll have the conventional one, right? So if you don't have the anxiety, it serves a very powerful positive function. So I want you guys to realize that. It's like anyone that's watching this, I want you to just, if you have anxiety, or if your kids have anxiety, just ask yourself, is it functional? Is it useful? And if the answer is yes, you might want to kind of keep it. Or if it's contaminating and generalizing and you're doing it more often than you'd like, which is usually the case, well, then you start to make some adjustments. And what happens is like when I work with someone, or even you thinking about things, and if I ask any of the listeners, how do you know that you have anxiety? Your brain will answer you. It'll answer you in some form of image or some form of voice that will tell you or show you how you're anxious. And when you think about it, what happens is when you bring it into consciousness, it makes the underlying neurocortical pathways, makes them malleable, makes them changeable, which means you can reprogram it and rewire it. So basically, in order to help, yourself get rid of anxiety, is you start changing some of the mental images and pictures that you're making. So anxiety very often can be bad planning. You start thinking about the absolute worst possible case happening, and you show your brain that, and guess what? 9 out of 10 times, your brain's going to do exactly what you show it. Congratulations, you did the exact plan you just showed your brain. So you want to start changing the images, start changing how you're talking to yourself, and start changing the feelings in your body. Because in fact, all these things which are called emotions are actually just energy and motion. So emotions is just a cognitive term for your feelings. And your feelings actually have a mechanical property to them. You have a place where you feel the feeling the strongest, where it starts and where it moves, and it has a direction to it. And you guys can try this right now very often. I'm working with someone with anxiety. It's like figure out where it starts, where the feeling to moves next, how it moves through their body. And then what we do is we start to take control of it consciously. I have them move the feeling, and our feelings typically move in 4 directions. They spin forward, they spin backward, they go clockwise, they go counterclockwise. And occasionally you just have people say, well, I just feel it in my chest, only in my chest, in which case, a little trick is you see if you can make your anxiety worse just for a second. And what will happen is if you can make your anxiety worse, that means you can control it, which means you can do what? Make it better. So very often you can get rid of anxiety just by changing the direction of how your feelings are moving. So if you get anxious and you feel your feelings moving up from your stomach, up to your chest, up to your throat, and you can barely breathe, and that's a great way to have anxiety. You stop breathing. You start thinking on miles an hour, your breathing shortens in your throat. Want to know one of the great best tips to get rid of anxiety? Deep diaphragmatic breathing. So we can get into each one of those modalities if you like. It really is that simple. And this is where something that's experiential, we do events together at the PA shop. Got the best recording studios ever. I want to start recording some hypnosis videos in there. Honestly, guys, if I could sing, I'm going to work hard during quarantine. I'd be in the PA shop recording, getting the hot tracks live, maybe even putting some conscious rap, conscious beats. It's worth a shot. What do you think, guys?
I'm in, man. Let's do it. That's amazing, Chris. Thank you so much. Yeah. And Chris, there's going to be quite a few people on here that are resonating with what you're saying, and they're interested in learning how this can help them. And I know Luke was mentioning to me, you're because we're not doing live events right now. So you've launched something online, right? That people can connect with to reach out to you to get some one-on-one. What's that all about?
So what Luke and I put together is called the ChrisWyllie community. And what we have is we're doing weekly webinars and Q&As, mastering one specific mental skill after another. So this is something I've wanted to do for a long time, is build an online community which can almost serve as a library and very simply just systematize the Cole's or Chris's notes on each of a topic. So the first week we covered anxiety. And in there, I treat it like it's a live seminar. It's a training webinar where I want to teach you to understand things intellectually on how anxiety works and how you can get rid of it. But more importantly, I want to train you on the practical techniques so that way you can actually start changing it yourself. And the cool part, the most fun part, is when you start going out, taking some of these techniques and working on your parents or working on your friends or working on them, because you can start making magical things happen. And it's a really empowering thing to be able to help people. So it's basically an online community, an online library that each week we're going in and mastering a particular mental skill. And that's really what cognition is about. It's a bunch of these different individual skills, being able to control your emotions and stay getting rid of anxiety. Memory, a lot of people think memory is just this genetic thing. I got news for you. It ain't. It's a learnable, trainable skill. I did that on Big Brother too, a little photographic memory thing. It actually made the cut. And then we're doing focus, we're doing motivation. So what basically I want to do is help train people in the full toolbox of skills, so that way they start optimizing each of the skills. Because when you have the skills and you have the competence in them, it's going to give you the confidence to just go out there. Whether you want to do public speaking, right? A lot of people are in the coaching field, therapy field. They want to write books. They want to do public speaking. Well, I got news for you. 98% of people have anxiety, have all these limiting beliefs and stuff getting in their way from them performing at their best. If you bypass and get rid of all that stuff and just go full out with your full confidence, you're already going to be ahead of the game. So that's an online community where each week it's hands-on. I'm live in there with you, answering your questions, teaching you how each of these fundamental skills, how they work, how to optimize them. And we have the best time ever. There was so much fun. And it's as close to a live event as possible. And it's something that we can grow. It's something that people all over the world can tune into and experience. And it's a great opportunity for me to take all my experience and all my strategies and knowledge and condense it into a simple form, where if someone has anxiety, I can just go, well, watch this 45-minute video. It's basically the manifesto from start to finish. And that's something I've wanted to do for a while. So it took a COVID-19 experience for me to have to focus on it full out. And again, making the most of the opportunity. So it's called the ChrisWyllie Club. It's all about brain and mental optimization and practical training.
The Game Changer, right? Is it the website that they have to go to?
The website is thegamechangerchriswyllie.com/club or /join.
Okay.
And
Yeah, link is in the comments below.
All right, sweet.
Yeah.
Luke, do we have any questions from anybody yet about what Chris just covered there? Because that was quite a bit, Chris. Thank you. That's amazing.
It was quite a bit. And I want to just let you guys know that is basically the calculus structure, how it works. Now, how every person does it individually can be done an infinite number of ways, right? So, I mean, you could do the bad planning thing where you see bad situations and stuff happening. Or you could just have racing internal dialogue that's going so fast to make it so you can't keep up with your thoughts, which therefore gives you anxiety. Or you could just have your feelings spinning in the wrong direction. Or you could be doing it all at the same time. So step number one is to figure out how your mind is messing itself up. And then number two, to reprogram and put in some better habits in its place. So, I mean, that's basically what I do, and that's the name of the game. So, again, what I'd like to caution you is the whole thing with the anxiety, and that's where something like depression, my goodness, PTSD, everyone looks at it as a bad thing. I'm looking at it as a perfect prime example of total perfect photographic memory. I mean, this person, I work with war veterans, they can tell me the exact things that happened in the Vietnam War, the exact sequence from start to finish. And I'm thinking, geez, photographic memory. I wish I could remember that in my biology studies like that. I wish I could remember my speech for an upcoming talk like that. Here, tell me more about how you do that.
Absolutely.
So the problem isn't that that they have PTSD. It's just they're using it to remember a crappy memory. Where if they were using it to remember important information they want to learn, talks they want to give, businesses they want to create, then it's useful. It's just like OCD. OCD, talk about a skill, ladies and gentlemen. If you put the right thoughts in your mind that you feel compelled to act on them, holy smokes, you come see me, guess what thoughts I'm going to put in? I'm going to put thoughts of working out. I'm going to put thoughts of relaxing. I'm going to put in thoughts of being a better human. You name it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, for people that don't quite understand, when you say you're going to put thoughts in, how does that can you even somewhat explain that in a way that people can understand what that means?
Yeah. So our thoughts, thing that we take for granted, people say, well, I just think that I'm anxious. Our thoughts are represented in two systems primarily, visually and auditorily. So that's what you say to yourself and the mental images that you make, which could be stuff you're remembering. So very often, if you get anxious, you're just remembering bad memories. Maybe, in grade 3, you went to speak in front of a teacher and, you were a little bit nervous. You didn't read so well. Everyone laughed and made fun of you. Now all of a sudden you go to public speaking, you have this crappy image memory of grade 3 popping up in your head. So that example of thinking would be visually representing that bad memory. So what you could do with that bad memory is, in order for it to make you feel bad, most of the time what people will do is they'll be associated. So they'll think about the memory and they'll re-experience it as if they're there, looking through their own eyes, hearing what they heard as if they're back in that moment. So the simple step to help reduce anxiety, reduce depression, even works with the PTSD and phobias, is just do a simple mental dissociation, where you go from being inside the memory to then looking at yourself in the memory as the observer, where you see yourself as opposed to being inside it. It will have a tendency to reduce the intensity of the feelings. Then you have the size of the mental image. Okay, do you have this big IMAX theater size image of the big bad memory that happened in grade 3 or the last time you gave a talk and messed up? Okay, well, if that's making you feel bad and it's really big, what do you think we should do? You should mentally take the thought and shrink it down. And what you'll notice is, as you alter these modalities of how our thoughts are represented, it'll change how you feel. And
Right.
so this is a mental skill that no one teaches this stuff, right? So, and we're never taught this stuff. It's just we're taking thoughts for granted. And when you have like let's say some of the spiritual syntax is, people talk about manifestation, visualization, intention. You know what they're talking about? They're talking about making mental pictures of what you want to happen. When people are talking about the resonance, the emotion, the vibration, what is that? That's the feelings in your body. And,
Right.
and then we don't really get into too much of the auditory side, but that's part of the thoughts. So basically the emotions, the vibration, the resonation, those are basically, you're talking about feelings in your body. And those mechanically have a place, like when you feel really, really, we'll just take, on the anxiety, there's a place where you'll feel the strongest. And then I'll ask you, okay, you feel it there. Where does the feeling move to next? Does it go upwards? Does it go downwards? And then, okay, let's say it goes upwards. Okay, how far up does it go? It goes to my neck. Oh my goodness, I feel it in my neck. Okay, well then where does the feeling go from there? Does it loop forward or loop backward? And you think, gosh, no one's ever asked me that before. It seems like a weird question. Oh, I'll just think about it for a second. Okay, yeah, it kind of spins forward. And guess what? People will show you with their hands how their feelings move through their body. You ever seen someone all worked up and you go, I'm just really worked up, or I'm just really, really stressed, or I just can't get myself going? They're showing you with their hands how their feelings are moving. So if anxiety is moving through your body one way, what do you think we're going to do? We're going to spin it in the opposite direction, and it's going to calm and relax your state. So
That's amazing.
that's the visual system, that's the kinesthetic system. And then on the auditory system, talking to yourself. In order to create anxiety and stress, it's usually because your internal dialogue is racing faster than you would talk normally, which makes it so it's hard for you to keep up with your ideas. So what you start to do is you start to breathe deeper and diaphragmatically, and you start to slow those voices down in your mind. And as you slow the voices down, you start to shrink down some of the images. You start to reverse the direction of your feelings moving through your body. Suddenly, ladies and gentlemen, you're in the driver's seat of your own mind, taking control of your state. and you're starting to reprogram your own brain. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. It's like riding a bike. What's your brain going to do? It's going to automate it. And whatever happens is, whatever you do most of the time and whatever your mind is most familiar with, it'll have a tendency to go to. And the more stressed you are, the more you'll go to what that tendency is. So this is where you can consciously reprogram and build these new states that you make more familiar with your mind. So therefore, it's going to be your new go-to set point. And that's the advantage of doing a bit of trance and hypnosis, is you can fast track that process. So you want to just practice, you go into the gym to build your biceps. Well, don't forget about your brain as well.
Yeah, it's true. People, I talked, throughout the show, I talk about, myself and the journey that I was on, and how much I didn't know before I started, and how much I didn't know even now. Like, there's so much to know and so much to learn.
Yeah.
And you're right. We're totally not taught this stuff. And until I think, speaking to the people who are watching, I think the biggest thing is that as soon as you can admit that there's things you don't know, and as soon as you start looking and asking questions, and I mean, we're incredible, intelligent creatures. So, we all have it within us to know what's right and wrong, and you have this gut feeling. And as soon as you connect closer to that, and you start really looking at all this, going, wow, this is very interesting. And certain things I think people are going to pick up on more. Like, certain things more people are going to be passionate, let's say, about working out, or certain people watching are probably more passionate about food. Like, we had Andrew on in the last episode. He's very passionate about food. And I've sort of gone similar to my work life. My work life, I started off as a DJ, and then I became did some songwriting and recording, and you sort of travel, right? I mean, my father started off doing a lot of rock music, and then, did some pop stuff, disco band he was in, and then he did he was in a Beatles tribute, and then he did country music. So, I mean, it's, I think everybody goes through in their life, they go through this journey of learning whatever it is they're passionate about. And I think it's at this point in time, one of the things that what's going on in the world is teaching us is that it's time for us to slow down on the technology and all that type of stuff. And Andrew said it on the last episode, what's old is new again. And this is ancient stuff that we're talking about. I mean, this is stuff that people have been, not in terms of necessarily the science, but in terms of the physicality of it, is that this is stuff that people have been all over for years. But it's only a handful. And now sort of people like yourself are bringing it to the masses and allowing people to take control of their mind. I mean, this is incredible. I mean, this is literally, for some people, this could change their lives for the rest of their life. That there's people. I mean, the gentleman I spoke to today said that he hasn't left the town he lives in years, and it's because he has mass anxiety. And I know that, and I said to him, listen, Chris is can help you help yourself. Right. And that's, and this is the thing, is that there's no one size fits all for anybody, like you said, but that goes for anything. I'm keto, and I've had a ton of people come to me and say, hey, how did you do what you did? Incredible. And they try it and it doesn't work. And it's because, there's no pill, there's no diet, there's no anything that's perfect for everyone. It doesn't work that way. Everything is lifestyle related, and everyone's brain, everyone's mind is going to be different, right? This is what I'm gathering from what you're saying. So it's a matter of everybody sort of looking within themselves and tailoring what you offer, and the things that NLP and all these things have to offer to themselves to be able to take control of their mind and their brain. And I've seen both levels. I've seen take control of your mind, and I've seen optimize your brain. Like, I've seen both, sort of, because to me they're almost two different things to me in some ways. And I've personally, you identified it in the beginning, I don't do a lot of meditation. I don't. And it's something that I've actually really been thinking about strongly about doing more of. And it's something that if you would have talked to me a couple of years ago, I would have went, yeah, I'll look into it. Sure. And I wouldn't have done it. Right. I just wouldn't have. I had other priorities. But I'm realizing now that, the biggest priority for everyone should be being healthy. Because if your fear is the fear of dying, then what's the opposite of dying? It's living. And if you want to live the best life, guess what? There's certain things that are required in order to live a great life, in order to live a healthy life. And you're right, Chris. We're not taught a lot of these things. In fact, it's the opposite. We're actually programmed from, like you said, a young age to think the opposite, right? There's a lot of false truths, right? That, a lot of that's starting to come out, over the last little while. There's a lot of this over the last number of years that start all coming to light now. And it's really great that, we have someone like yourself to call on for the mind side of it, for the brain side of it, because I think what we're all dealing with right now, especially being in self-isolation, it's very traumatic on the brain. And like I said, combine that with the fact that everybody's very confused right now and fearing. I think now is the best time ever for everyone to put their hand up and go, hey, I could use a little chat with Chris, or hey, I could use some of that advice about rolling back my feelings. And don't fear that. Don't fear putting your hand up, because that's the first step. The first step to anything like this is admitting that there's an issue, and then going, okay, well, this sounds kind of interesting. I want to learn more about it before I really go down the rabbit hole, right? And I think that's what that's where they go to Club Chris, right? And check out some of the stuff that you're talking about and see what gravitates with them, and listen to their gut. And that's what I take from what you're saying. And I think that's the beginning for people. And then from there, just like with me, it was custom. Like, it was like, I will never forget the look on your face when you saw the feedback on the screen, and you turned and you looked at me, and I thought something was wrong. I was like, is everything okay, man? Like, you're like, man, I've never seen
that.
That
was after the recording. I wouldn't have messed the recording. That was after.
No, after. Yeah, after. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's the thing. So it's not one size fits all. Not everybody's the same, right? It's different for everyone. And I think that's what's so incredible about us as humans, and about things like, like NLP and brain transformation, is that we can take control, but we have to choose to take control, and then educate ourselves and learn the steps to do it. And Luke, you're a living, you both you guys are, I mean, all three of us really, but you guys a lot more than me are living proof of it, right? I mean, Luke, you said it right at the beginning of the podcast that there's no way you would have even done this with me had not taking control of your mind, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So I think that's prolific. Like, I think that's
Crohn's and stuff awesome. When I first met him.
Yeah. I was in pretty rough shape there.
You couldn't what?
But again, it's like it shows, it shows the importance of being able to quantify what we're looking at too, right? That, like you said, everybody is so different. There's the, the foundation that's very similar, human to human, but had I not gone to see Chris and actually done the brain map and seen that there was this concussion that was causing like massive memory issues and a bunch of different stuff, just being able to quantify it really sort of levels that playing field where, yes, everybody's different, everybody is going to need a different approach, but when you can quantify it, and if you have an expert like Chris able to read it and know exactly what to do, like when he did the first brain map, we did the brain map, he saw the concussion and he said, well, how's your memory? How's do you dream at night? I said, my memory's dog shit, and I can't remember the last time I dreamt. So he said, okay,
says that all the time.
Yeah. And so he's like, hey man, try this white powder, which was choline. He just put a little bit of this choline in water. I drank it up, didn't taste like anything. He said, in 10, 15 minutes, we'll do another brain map. And if we notice a difference, then we know that we're on the right track. And that's something that you should be taking. And so we did that. And it was I'm not a neuroscientist, but I could tell that it was looking a lot more even. It looked a lot better. So after that, he said, order it. It's like $5 for a huge supply of it. It's super cheap. order it online. I think it was Powder City or something like that. I don't know. That's a website still, but we got the, I got it, and he said, yeah, you'll know it's working in a few days when you wake up from the most vivid dream that you've had in, a long time or forever. And I took it for 3 days, 4 days, woke up, and it was like, whoa, I just had the craziest dream. Oh, I knew I was going to have the craziest dream and remember it. And then since that point, my memory has been, 1,000% better. I'm still working on it all the time, but it's one of those things where I would literally just fall off in the middle of a sentence, unable to keep my train of thought, where, like now my memory is pretty sharp, and I eat a certain way to supplement the choline naturally, lots of eggs. But it just that little spot in my life where I was able to quantify those what was going on in my brain and actually do something, make sure it actually was working, and then go forward with that. And I think I supplemented for a couple months. It cost like $5 or $10,
Wow.
and haven't looked back since.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. And I think there's some things that people can do even now, like while we're still on in self isolation because of what's going on, and not just now, but even once we come out, and there's going to be things that people can do even without on their own, that can help. And I know, Luke, me and you were talking a bunch about this off and on over the last couple of weeks, but and we've both been doing it. Certainly, you more than me. I've been busy bee at work, but is going outside, right? And and Chris, I know you wanted to talk about some biohacks too, right? So, what are some of the things that people should be doing right now to help with their brain, to help with their mind, that they can do simple things?
Yeah, well, it's basically an energy game, and the thing is with our body's energies, what our mind does and what our brain does is whenever we have an activity we want to do, like a project, a business project, or even go for a run or go for a workout, our brain estimates the amount of energy it thinks it has versus the energy demands of a task, and if the energy demands of a task, exceed what our brain thinks we have in terms of energy, it creates this mental stress and overwhelm. So basically, by charging your body and doing these different biohacks and practices, it's going to increase the amount of work that your mind can perceive is going to do, and naturally get rid of the overwhelm, the mental stress, that feeling like you have too much on your plate and you're not able to do it. So it's all an energy game. So this is where we want to use, there's a lot of ideas on the sun. Basically, the sun is the most fundamental, primordial way to charge our body. And there's theories that's why we lost a lot of our hair, to have this nice, juicy solar panel of skin, which you can see on your face and Luke's face. And if you guys would take your shirt off, you'd have this nice solar panel. A little bit of hair is because you guys are grizzly guys. But what you'd be doing is, be getting the photons from the sun. Now, interestingly, I ask this question all the time. Where do you think is the highest concentration of DHA in the brain and body? You think it's the brain? What do you think it is? The highest concentration of DHA.
I'll let you answer, Ryan.
Oh, you guys are killing me.
Where are you in density?
The highest amount of DHA.
Highest amount of DHA. And DHA is that magical fatty acid in seafood that's improves cognitive health across the board.
Wow. I actually don't know the answer, but I would wager a guess based on what you're saying that it's either in the skin or in your hair.
Close. It's actually your eyes.
Your eyes?
So what happens is your eyes take in light, and it transduces this light into these electrical signals, which release the timing of neurotransmitters, hormones. So if you guys are having sleeping problems watching this, one of the first things you want to do is get out in the morning, get the AM sun around 9, 10 a.m., get grounded, get in the sun, because what that's going to do, the light is going to tell your brain, okay, it's morning, okay, it's day, and it's going to synchronize the release of melatonin at night. So one of the important things to fixing your sleep and your overall energy levels is getting the proper timing of light. So presence of sun in the morning, and then absence of excessive amounts of blue light, which we're surrounded with technology screens. So if you're on a computer, install F-Lux, put F-Lux on all your systems to block out the blue light, because blue light does the opposite. It turns off melatonin production and stimulates the brain, stimulates beta brainwaves, all this stuff that keeps you up. So fixing your light. Light is so important. So you want to light up your life? Well, get out, in the light. And if you want Venice Beach style or your own backyard beach style, take the shirt off, pull out some weights, even if it's a stone, and work out shirtless in the sun, grounded. That's the ultimate recipe. So if you're grounded, how grounding works is you have this earth that is filled with all these electrons and negative ions. You have a body, the earth has way more electrons than you do. So electrons flow from earth to your body. Then you're in the sun. Okay, you're absorbing photons from the sun. Then you're getting your brain nutrition. So lots of DHA, which we get in fish. And you want to stay away from like the high mercury type fish, the tunas and stuff, and get the salmon, the sockeye salmon, even a bit of trout and lake fish. Lake fish is really good. Not going to be high in mercury. To get the DHA. So that DHA, if you look across the board, fish oil improves brain health, cognition, helps to get rid of depression, improves mood, improves focus. In women having children, they have DHA before. It's associated with higher intelligence in children. So you want that trifecta of proper amounts of time in the sun. And this is not a license to go out and bake yourself and inflame the crap out of your cells, because you don't see any animals at 2 in the middle heat of day just camping out, throwing oil like they're being baked in a frying pan. You don't see any animals, right? So, getting the proper amount of sun and light onto your skin cells. And you'll see when you're out in the sun, what happens? Your skin tissues start getting red. What is that? That's blood flowing to the surface of the skin to absorb the light and bring it to your inner organs.
Oh, really?
So you'll notice that when people start blushing or they feel emotion, blood goes to the cheeks. Or when someone sees someone and they're anticipating a kiss, blood will flow to their lips. Their lips will flood with blood. And before you know it, you'll have the perfectly filled lips to go in for the perfect kiss. Blood flows to areas that are active, my friend. So,
so Chris, just to go back one sec. So, because I go out to the beach all the time, and I like getting a tan. So I'm in the, I'm there in the 2 o'clock. I'm not the oil guy. That's not me, but I find it interesting. And we all, I guess, whether consciously or subconsciously, we all realize that, of course, it's hotter at like noon or 1 or 2 o'clock than it is at 9 a.m.
Right.
But I think it's important to just touch on that for a second. So you're saying that there's a connection between waking up in the morning, getting that sun in the morning, training your brain to say, okay, it's morning, and opening your eyes. There's a connection there, but you're saying there becomes a point in the day where the sun starts to get hot and it starts to inflame your skin. So can you just touch on that?
You have a balance. You have a balance. So the sun can be this magical photonic energy bearing gifts. But if you get too much of it, you'll inflame the crap out of cells and oxidize them and deplete your stem cells. So it's about balance, right? So, not overdoing it, getting a balanced amount, getting at least 10 to 20 minutes on your skin, as much of your skin as possible. And a little biohack is if you have a little bit of fat before, coconut oil, egg yolks, the cholesterol and lipids in that will enhance the conversion of vitamin D. And vitamin D is made from cholesterol. It's sulfated cholesterol. And therefore, if you consume a little bit of fat beforehand, you get it in the sun, you're going to raise your vitamin D levels. Vitamin D is like the fire hose that puts out the fire of inflammation in your brain and your body. So if you want to raise your cortisol levels, if you want to reduce your stress, raise your vitamin D levels. It's huge for the immune system. It's huge for everything. So all I'm saying is just get a balanced amount of it. So the more adaptable your skin is, the longer you can stay out. But always with anything, go low, start slow, get 10 to 15 minutes on your skin. And then as soon as you start noticing your skin overinflaming, then cover up. So I'd always recommend covering up or staying out of the sun as opposed to lathering yourself with all these chemically and, laden lotions. So the vitamin D portion, you got to get closer to the middle of the day. So that's when you'll get the strongest sun. So that's when you'll synthesize the most vitamin D, if I'm correct. Yeah. The importance of morning light just helps to synchronize your eyes, wake your brain up, helps with sleep in the evening. And the little biohack is just to consume some healthy fats, egg yolks, coconut oil, avocado, fish, grass-fed butter, a little bit of healthy fats beforehand, which is going to help increase vitamin D production. And, that cholesterol is the base of all your sex steroids and hormones. It's just if you have too much stress, all of it's being shunted to cortisol as opposed to building those nice, juicy testosterone, progesterone, vitamin D. So the sun and a good amount of vitamin D will help if you're on a ketogenic diet or a high-fat diet, help you to convert all that cholesterol and fatty acids into nice, juicy testosterone and vitamin D to help you be vigorous and a whole lot of human, let me tell you.
Is there such thing as too much vitamin D?
Well, it's like anything. Your body will adapt and just, it'll stop. Like you'll reach a point of saturation, and then I think you'll get like diminishing returns. I don't know the answer exactly, but you'll have synthesis, but then it'll start to diminish off once you get
it's like vitamin C. Yeah.
So by that point, you're probably close to burning, so you better get out of the sun. So there's a built-in mechanism,
Yeah, it might be different for supplementing vitamin D. There might be an upper limit of what you want to take, just in terms of having a sort of a,
that's a totally different thing, because vitamin D produced on the skin is the combination of photons, electrons producing this molecule, where when you're taking it as a chemical supplement, it's a different molecule. It's like has different photonic light energy on it. So it has different effects on the body. So
well, I've even heard Dr. Jack Kruse say, like, absolutely do not supplement with a vitamin D supplement. Just do whatever it takes to get enough healthy fats, enough DHA, and get your ass out in the sun.
Yeah. And we even know, like, even if it's February, March, there are days where it's sunny outside. Mm-hmm. So you take your shirt off and you get those sun rays. You're not going to get a tan. You might be a little cold, but you're getting cold thermogenesis, which is another great biohack. So if you're in the city, especially and around a lot of EMF, that's high-level EMF, which is constantly activating your brain cells. Cold does the opposite. It helps to reduce the inflammation, helps to activate, deep sleep. So you can do cold showers, cold baths if you were brave enough, which, you guys are cool humans watching this, so you guys are brave enough. If you're living downtown Toronto and you're in an apartment building with 100 Wi-Fi routers, you better get your butt in a cold tub 3 days a week. There'd be no fans or butts. Now, if you're in London, Ontario, not as much Wi-Fi load, then okay, you can get away with the cold showers. But even if you're downtown London, one of those apartment buildings, you might want to consider a cold tub here and there if you're not sleeping well. It will help facilitate deep sleep. So we have light, we have grounding, we have the brain nutrition, the DHA, the healthy fats. We have cold. So if your body really is inflamed, so the one thing I think that could really kickstart people with the ketogenic diet is if you add in cold thermogenesis with it. So if you do ketogenic diet plus cold like tubs, you better believe your fat stores are getting dumped and burned, okay? Your body has no choice to become this lean machine, okay? So sometimes, if someone's on a ketogenic diet, but they still have high amounts of inflammation, now the cholesterol and fatty acids aren't converting into the hormones for whatever reason. So, it might just be that person has high cortisol. So you add in some cold thermogenesis with the ketogenic diet, boom, now it starts working like magic. So that's the fun part about every brain being unique, every body being unique, is you have to find the optimal combination of biohacks, mental strategies, brain strategies that you put together that help you to be the best superhero possible.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, we weren't gonna touch on this, but you kind of brought it up, so I'm interested. You're saying that cold allows you to reverse the effects of EMF exposure, and the EMF stimulates your brain. Can you just give us your sort of Cole's notes or Chris's notes, if you will, on the EMF stimulating your brain? Like how
Yeah.
what is, because I never even actually thought about, because I mean I haven't lived in an apartment building in years, but I never actually thought about that. There's literally, if you live in an apartment building, you got an exponential amount of routers in there. You're right, and that is very different from living in a home in a neighborhood. So I'd be interested. I'm sure there's people watching that live in apartment buildings, and I'd be just curious to know again the Chris's notes on how EMF stimulates your brain, and the sort of the negatives to that,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Basically like kind of three mechanisms. So EMF, these are the high level frequencies from Wi-Fi routers, cell phone towers, 4, 5G, oh my goodness. And what happens is these high level EMFs is they do one thing. They cause what's called calcium efflux. And when calcium spews out of a cell, it goes and activates other neurons. And what that basically means is it's constantly chronically stimulating your brain, which creates anxiety, makes it difficult to sleep. You don't get the deep REM sleep, therefore you're sleep deprived. You're not as focused. You have brain fog, which creates more anxiety, means you don't sleep as well. So you have the calcium efflux. Now, the other part that's even dangerous with children, especially, is there's leakiness of the blood-brain barrier. So these high-level frequencies, what they do is they make your blood-brain barrier. So we have this blood-brain barrier
Really?
to protect the inner structures of our brain. Normally we have it, and what happens is EMF makes it more permeable and leaky,
Oh, I
and
didn't know that.
therefore allows, okay, let's say your mercury in your food or aluminum here or lead there, allows those metals to get into the deep structures of your brain to cause havoc. So those are the two main big beefs with EMF, and it's constantly stimulating our cerebellum and our reptilian brain, which just is constantly keeping us in this state of activation, and will lead to adrenal fatigue, burnout, anxiety, difficulty sleeping. So it's the external field that is our brain is in training to and being impacted by. And case in point is, when did I have all my anxiety attacks? When I was living downtown London on the 12th floor. I mean, London's not even that bad, but I didn't have one night in that apartment building where I slept like deep. Like, I'm up at my cottage now. I go to bed, I sleep deep.
Oh,
I
yeah.
sleep like a baby. There ain't no Wi-Fi. There ain't no buzz, no sounds. I sleep deep. You go out in nature, you sleep deep,
It's true. Definitely true.
right?
I do it.
So
Yep.
if you're experiencing those sleep issues, there's probably high-level EMFs. The simple hack you can do to neutralize that is just taking magnesium. And the form of magnesium you want to take for your brain is called magnesium 3 and 8. It works on your cerebral spinal fluid. So just even taking magnesium alone will help to reduce anxiety, help you to sleep better, and help protect your neurons from EMF. Because the fourth thing that I didn't mention is called excitotoxicity. And that is when these brain cells are constantly stimulated over and over and over, it can trigger brain cell death. And that's called excitotoxicity. So you'll know that the EMF does it, artificial flavorings like aspartame in chewing gum, in these energy drinks, in these pre-workout drinks, is they create excitotoxicity, which causes brain cell loss. So that is a pretty, big onslaught. So it is the biggest factor. I mean, we haven't covered it, but it's one huge passion of mine is working with autistic kids. And there is this coinciding explosion in autism and the electrification of Wi-Fi and the development of that on the planet. They have like the technology boom in the 90s, and before you know it, the autism curve basically follows it. And what happens is it creates, these issues in the neuroimmune system of the mothers, of the children, makes the brain susceptible. So, I mean, if you're watching this and you live in an apartment building and you're quarantined right now, you really have no choice but to start supplementing with magnesium and get the cold. It's not like you're going anywhere. So start with the cold showers, start with the magnesium, and then also sunlight is a great vasodilator. It's a great calcium channel blocker. So a lot of people take blood pressure medications. Just getting natural sunlight will work like high blood pressure, anti-hypertensive. It'll help to relax you. And you'll notice that you get in the sun, you'll start to relax a little bit, mellow a little bit, feel a little bit calmer. So combination of sun, cold, some savvy brain nutrition, and the more EMF you're exposed to, the more DHA you need to consume, the more phospholipids, because these brain cells have these membranes, and DHA is like 50% of the membrane. So the more you're stressing the cells, the more DHA and phospholipids you have to have in there to protect the architecture of your brain. So, seafood is brain food. Of course, you don't want to be eating big mercury fish, but if you can get, like raw oysters here or there, which are loaded in iodine, iron, DHA, very powerful for women. So a lot of the women I work with, when they have anxiety and these issues, typically they're coming in and they'll be, anemic as well. And they'll have really low iron. So that's where like the oysters, grass-fed liver, and you guys are right in London. So you have access to all this great nutrition and farms where you can get a lot of stuff locally. You can get really amazing eggs, you can get fresh vegetables. So, you want to get in there, support, the local food, and that's going to be your medicine for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that you talk about the sun the way you do with regards to it, because as Canadians, again, there's people from all over the world watching, but speaking as a Canadian, we call ourselves snowbirds, and we go down to Florida, some of us, when we're not working. But my grandparents have been going there. They've been blessed to be retired for many years now, and they've been going down there for years. And my parents go down there, close to Christmas time sometimes. And I think it's interesting that you're saying that all the effects that the sun has. I think I think there could be a reason why humans are drawn, Canadians specifically, especially during winter, are drawn down there, to go down there. I mean, aside from the fact that they can play golf and all these other awesome things, um, I think there's definitely something in their subconscious that's saying, hey, you need more DHA, you need more sun, you need to get out of the house. And it's in a lot of cases, especially for the very older people, it's safer. You're not going to slip on ice, you're not going to trip and break a hip or whatever. So there's all kinds of benefits of doing that, but not everybody can do that. So the people that can't do that, you've given us some incredible things, but one of them is simply just eat fish. From the sounds of it, get some get some fish in you. And what type of fish is important? I was talking to a friend of mine not that long ago here in town, Tammy, and we were talking about fish, and she asked me, she said, so all fish is bad? I'm like, no, not all fish is bad. But the ones that have mercury and things like that, high levels of mercury, not such a good idea, especially when you're exposed to EMF. So yeah, knowing what kind of fish, and we are blessed, Chris, you're right. I mean, just even being in anywhere that's close to like even freshwater fish, freshwater lakes and stuff like that. We've got a lot of that in Canada. And you talk about lake fish, talk about trout. I'm a fisherman myself, so I love catching trout. Not always the easiest in the middle of summer, by the way, but you got to go down deep, depending on what lake you're in. But done right, it's great. And so there's definitely there's alternate stuff out there to tuna and all the stuff that people are typically used to consuming that maybe you're saying maybe isn't the best idea en masse. And then in terms of healthy fats, you touched on a few things. So avocado, grass-fed butter, coconut oil, eggs. You talk about London and how we have a lot of farms down here. We have some organic farms. We have some incredible egg farms here. If people are looking for the healthier choice, what do you recommend? You recommending organic eggs? Like what kind of is there any specifics with regards to coconut oil? Is there anything that people should be looking for?
Yeah. Well, the nice thing with eggs is a chicken, if she's going to put all the prime nutrients that she has, even if she's a conventionally grown stressed chicken that's not organic and eating absolute crap, the one place where she's going to protect the most with the most nutrition is going to be in the eggs. So, even a conventional egg is better than no conventional egg because it has, the perfect B vitamins, phospholipids, choline for your brain, people who are worrywarts are low in choline. So, eggs, if you can go organic, it's just going to have more energy, power pack punch to it. The chickens had better nutrition, will have more nutrition, in the eggs. You have more vitamins, more minerals, more nutrients in it. And you'll see the pigment, you'll see the carotenoids, and it'll be rich and orange. And, you'll feel different. Like you'll actually feel like when you have good food, like good nutrition, like especially organic nutrition straight from a local farm, like you eat it, and as opposed to feeling tired after, you feel more energized. So, especially for greens, you do want to go organic. Eggs, you can get away with, but if you can afford organic, go for organic. Like, if you're going to spend your money somewhere, eggs, you're not going to break the bank on eggs. I mean, you can even go to Costco and get 2 dozens worth for $10, and they're pretty high quality eggs. So, for coconut oil, again, you want to look for where it's coming from. You do want to get organic, because if you're not getting organic coconut, who knows where those coconuts are coming from? And they could be filled with mold and all this stuff, right? So, go with the organic on that stuff. When it comes to, even meats and stuff, you have to assess yourself. So for someone like myself, I do so many things to enhance my health. I don't stress about whether I'm eating organic or not organic, because I'm doing so many practices to ensure my body's healthy.
Right.
Now, if you're not, and you're trying to heal from disease, that's different, right? Because you're trying to get your body to balance. You're trying to heal your body. So then you want to go organic. You want to give yourself the best possible, and the cleanest food, and minimize your toxin load. And for fats, it basically boils down to 2 things. You have fats which build your brain structure. That's DHA and seafood. Then you have fats which your body you want to burn for fuel. That's coconut oil, MCT oil. So I love being in that ketogenic state, especially in the morning when I want to plow through all my mental work. And then, before I want to work out, push my body, that's more at lunch. That's when I'll throw in my carbohydrates, because it will increase your muscle glycogen, help you work out better. So the whole eating, it depends upon your purpose. So, you eat, on purpose, and you optimize your mind on purpose, and you biohack yourself on purpose, and you be a better human on purpose.
Hey, there you go. Amazing.
Yeah.
Luke, do we have any, is there any questions we need to cover at this point?
No, just some nice comments. No real questions at this point, though.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, Chris, in terms of things that people can do other than the ChrisWyllie Club, after we sort of come out of Luke, you mentioned the brain mapping, right? Like, there's other things, Chris, right? That you offer that people can do down the road as well, right? What are some of those things?
Yeah. So, normally I run my own private practice, and we do events in different cities, and I offer some of these brain services, one of which is QEEG brain mapping, which basically provides us a full imaging and picture of how your brain is functioning. And from that, how that's valuable is I can use that to tailor nutrition recommendations, supplement recommendations, biohacking recommendations, even mental therapeutic recommendations based on seeing how your brain is functioning. So that is one huge key piece, especially important for kids, 7-year-old kids or 8-year-old kids or 9-year-old kids who maybe don't have the attention span to sit down and want to do some, like NLP or hypnotic or mental work. But you could do a quick brain map. You could say, okay, you want to eat these foods. You want to get this choline. Oh, you need a little bit more dopamine. So you maybe take a little L-tyrosine. So really effective for kids, especially even, with the autistic kids, is doing the brain mapping, the EEG, so we can see how your brain's functioning. And most importantly, I can design a custom brain enhancement plan for you, encompassing all the variables. So that's something we normally do. I have my own practice here in Markham, Ontario. I do travel all the time. We come to London a lot of the time. We do a lot of events at the PA shop, or we were before COVID, because Ryan's a really generous guy, and he allows us to use his recording studio to have the best events possible. So
you're all over though. You did some in Ottawa too, right? I think at one point there.
Oh yeah, we did some in Ottawa, and especially after this, once Corona goes away, with all the stuff we've been working on, we're going to be doing this stuff across Canada before you know it. So we got clients all over the place, And that's what the club is for. The club is for the people who are online, who want to learn in depth how to optimize these specific skills. Very often I have people, they just want to work one-on-one. They're maybe not so interested in learning. They just want to work one-on-one. And that's what I do in person. The one-on-one NLP work, the one-on-one hypnotic work on the mental side, and then on the brain side, the QEEG brain mapping, the neurofeedback, and different ways to retrain your brain. So it's just a matter of, figuring out what a person needs, getting to the quickest go-to solution, doing that, and then off to the races. So normally I'd be doing a lot of work in person. I'm still working online, so I'm still doing some Skype sessions, NLP sessions via Skype, which are still quite effective. Nothing is the same as in person, because there's certain cues and energy you get in person. But still doing the one-on-ones via Skype, getting the club going, the webinars going, the weekly Q&As, and just welcoming people to the world of enhancing their brain and helping to give them the blueprint and tools to do so.
That's amazing, man. Well, thanks so much for giving us all this incredible information tonight. I mean, it's a lot, but it's important, and I think everybody watching now, and as the episode continues to be out there and people continue to watch it, I think this is going to help impact people in a major way. I think it's going to get people thinking and reaching out and really trying to figure out these biohacks, figure out that, hey, you know what? Yeah, I do want to have less stress. I do want to have less anxiety. I do want to be able to control the voices in my head. All these things, right? And so much more. Be able to optimize your brain, to be able to do public speaking, or to be able to sell better, or to be able to just have conversations without getting all worked up and freaking out. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business owners, or even a lot of people who just work in business out there on the front lines. Like, certainly right now, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've called a lot of places for customer service, and I know these people are working from home. And I mean, I've even had a couple of them be like, "Hey, I'm new. They just brought me on. And you can tell they're kind of rustling papers in the background and stuff. These people have not necessarily been formally trained, and I think these are key people that should be trying to figure out, how do I optimize my brain? How do I make sure that I'm my best self going into every single call? Because you're going to crush it, right? You're going to crush it. And when we all come out of this COVID thing, you're going to be the number one person in the company. You're just going to keep rising and rising and rising up, right? And if, like you said, if you take the images in your mind of being, like, oh, I'm not sure what I'm doing, and you're not going to get there. But if you say, hey, you know what, I can do this. I'm gonna be the VP. I'm gonna be whatever it is you want to be. You can get there. And it's no different. Me and Luke are connected to a lot of people in the music industry. And there's a lot of people out there right now I see making videos. There's a lot of people who I know who are DJs who are getting their gear out again. Their kids are even using it. It's fun, right? It's exciting. And I think that part of this too, this speaks to you guys too, guys and girls too. It's everybody. I think everybody can optimize their brain and their mind. And music is a big part of that too. I think that music is a huge part of that. So and I think that's a lot of reasons why I see a lot of the people that are in a lot of health fields and stuff. I know I sell guitars, and I'm delivering guitars to a lot of different doctors and different people, and it's interesting just to me that these people are all connected to music and frequency and vibration, and it's very interesting. And so I think that, to all me and Luke's friends and colleagues in the industry who are watching, take a look at this stuff. It's important. We've been influenced, especially front of house guys and lighting guys, and all of us techs who are typically out at front of house. Luke, you can speak to this better than I can, but we've been influenced by all the frequencies, right, over time. And I think that, if you start taking a look at some of what Chris is talking about, you'll find some of the reasons why you have certain levels of anxiety and things going on in your life. Yeah. Luke, do you have anything to say with regards to that?
Yeah, well, as you know, I've mentioned this a couple times on the show. I have an EMF meter, and just the if you're standing in front of a console for hours a day, or if you're a wireless tech or anything like that, like, those are substantial amounts of EMF that you're getting. And like you can if you miss it on the episode, definitely rewatch the whole thing, because we definitely cover a lot of really easy actionable things that you can take to mitigate the effects of those EMFs. And and then we've all seen the other side of the coin in terms of that energy of an amazing performance on stage, and you see the whole crowd moving together. And like I have a friend who does some like pretty crazy brain map testing at McMaster University at their live room there, the live lab, I think they call it. But they've worked with a bunch of people, and I think they can get about 200 people in the room, hook them all up to heart rate monitors and brain scans. And what they see is that during the concert, assuming everything is ideal, the acoustics are good and stuff like that, is that people's heart rates will start to synchronize, and people's the brain waves will start to synchronize. So music has a powerful healing aspect to it. And I think that's why most people have a net positive experience at most shows they go to. But it is one of those things, again, if you're just as a routine, as a habit, doing all of these things like the magnesium, the cold showers, the cold baths, getting out in the sun, being grounded as much as possible. Like I have a grounding mat under my feet right now. All of those things, it all of a sudden you don't have to think about what you need to do or not do. You just become accustomed to doing all of those things. And if you build it into your daily routine, then chances are you're going to mitigate these issues enough. And that's why you can go to a concert, enjoy it, not have to worry about whether the EMFs are going to get you, whether, all that kind of stuff. And same too with life in general. There's a lot of really positive information out there. There's a lot of positive leaders. There's a lot of positive speakers that are online sharing news.
Absolutely.
There's like, in terms of being informed, staying away from the narrative journalism. Like there are definitely people out there. I can't really make recommendations. I know who I like, but again, if they're a leader who is doing what you want to do yourself as a leader, then that's probably going to be a good source. Whether they're using hypnosis and NLP and all that kind of fun stuff. We all know that the mainstream media does that with fear and uncertainty, and they become professional at it for decades and decades. So again, if you're use that sort of fear litmus test. If someone's driving fear, maybe tune out and find someone who can still get that information across, but in a positive manner.
Amen. Absolutely. 100%. I did that exercise myself, actually. I went through my social media. I've done it a few times since this all started. And I've been, unfollowing certain people. I've been unfollowing certain sites. I've been, following others, especially on YouTube and stuff like that. I've been really trying to follow like positive, uplifting, sort of people, and people who, like you said, Luke, who I feel are leaders, people who speak to me in a way that's positive, who speak to me in a way that, like you said, I'm still getting the information, but it's not all doom and gloom. It's like, okay, we don't quite understand what's going on. This is what's happening. But let's look at this, constructively. And so from a news standpoint, let's look at it constructively. Let's look at what we know. Let's not guess. Let's not assume. And let's look at the facts. And you really gravitate towards those people. And then on the lighter side, when you're looking to laugh, when you're looking to learn, and educate yourself, because you can educate yourself without watching the news. Like I've done copious amounts of it the last 2 or 3 months. Probably read more, Chris, for the record, in the last 2.5 months than I have in my whole life put together. So thank you for that, because you helped make that happen. But yeah, it's important. It's important that you learn and you read and you follow those key positive people, because if you don't, and all you're doing is you're receiving, you're not going out, like Chris said, you're not going towards what you want, then don't be surprised when you don't get it. It's that simple, everybody. I mean, And I'm the first one to put my hand up and say that for so many years, I built a successful business and I thought, I don't need to know anything else. I don't need to know. It's not true at all. It's not true. If you're not learning, if you're not going forward, you're going back. It's as simple as that. Because if you're not going forward, someone else is. It means you're not staying in the same place. You're going backwards. So you always have to be learning and evolving. And one of the people that I look up to for that is my father. My dad. I've said it before in a couple of episodes that with some of the things that I thought he was crazy, and for some of the things he did, when all of a sudden he had a hard time getting a truck driver, he just went to the college and got his AZ and his air brake license. It's like, what? You're gonna start driving trucks on tour now? But it made sense. All of a sudden he's like, no, but if we were short a driver for this tour, I can just jump in the truck and go. And I'm like, wow, that's, I can't do that. I don't have an AZ license. I can't drive that truck. I don't even know how. So, I mean, it's funny. Like, that's one of the things we have the hardest time finding is people who can drive standard, right? How many people can drive standard in the world today, right? Like, it's just, yeah, Luke can. But it's like, that's the thing, man. There's all these things that people don't value. They're like, oh, I don't need to know that. It's all good, But why not? Why don't you need to learn that? I think that I think what you're saying, Luke, and I think it's totally true, is look for what speaks to you, right? Look at what speaks to you, because chances are, if it does, it probably feeds into something you're passionate about. And Chris, I think that's what happened to you, right? You found something you were heavily passionate about, whether you realized it in the beginning or not. It sparked something. You're like, whoa, this is awesome, and you just went hard down the rabbit hole, right?
No holds barred, man.
Yeah, man.
And that's where, like, it's great. You have to find the passion, what ignites that flame inside you and gets you up and pulls you towards, doing the things to learn and grow. And then you also have to learn how to get yourself to do the dirty work that you just have to do, even though it's a pain in the butt. So that's a different conversation, but
sure.
Yeah.
But then there's the third part, right? Which is you talked a lot about it, which is the meditation and the taking time, right, to heal and all that side of it, right? So it's one of those things where that's all part of the journey, and it's all relevant, and it all plays, and they can talk with ChrisWyllie about all of it.
Oh, yeah.
The game changer. Luke, we got some questions we want to get to here.
Yeah, I got a question from our man Ethan in the comments there.
Okay.
You remember Ethan?
What's up, man?
Yeah. So Ethan's question is, my dreams have been getting more vivid, and I started listening to music while going to bed. Does this affect how you dream?
Well, great question.
Incredible
So
question.
we didn't cover my top favorite biohack. My favorite biohack is actually sound and music, because it's the most primordial way to entrain a brain, whether it's drumming, whether it's chanting, all that's designed to alter your state. Now that sound, is possibly, influencing his state before he goes to bed. I've actually done some research on this, like the suggestions and stuff and sound while sleeping. I once gave people a tape with 3,000 subliminal messages that were negative suggestions. Now they procrastinate. They'd never amount to anything. They're not good enough. And I gave them one direct suggestion where I said, you listen to this for the next 3 weeks, and each week it's going to help you get calmer, more relaxed, more confident in yourself. They came back 3 weeks later. Guess what the results were? They were calmer, more confident in themselves, more relaxed. So one good suggestion can be better than 3,000. The answer to my question for Ethan is, if what he's doing is working and helping him to sleep well, then keep doing it. Keep exploring, keep trying more. So again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just kind of self-exploration. If I knew what frequencies he was using, I could give some suggestions. Before bed, you want to do enhanced dreaming and REM sleep. Get the 4 to 8 hertz, the theta range. So if you're going to do some brainwave entrainment that you can listen to soundtracks you can listen to, then try some theta before bed. That'll help you to get into that REM state that dreamlike state will help you dream better and help you to consolidate memory and have more vivid visualization. So the theta layered frequency before bed for more vivid dreaming and for better memory. So that's the most direct answer I could give to Ethan. Is that's the exact frequency band you'd want to go after for more of that.
So are you talking more about like binaural beats? I think he just means like he's listening to music. I asked in the chat. I'll see if he gets back to me real quick here. But I asked what kind of music.
Yeah, binaural. You'd be doing binaural beats. Is the most fundamental way to entrain the brain. If you just got 4 hertz coming at your brain, you may or may not get entrained to it. You could do both.
So is there actually specific music that's designed for this kind of thing, Chris?
Yeah, there are certain tracks that you can buy that have the energy frequencies into it, as well as the binaural entrainment. One company that I really like is called iAwake, and they have tracks for everything: for deep sleep, for theta meditation, for learning, for focus, gamma entrainment. And you can actually meditate to these sound frequency tracks, and it helps you meditate and get into a particular state. So it can really fast track your meditation learning curve and be a great tool. It's something I used a lot. Sound is one of my favorite ways to biohack a brain. So if our guy Ethan is listening to a soundtrack and he's sleeping better and dreaming better, what I want Ethan to try is to put that soundtrack next to his mom's bed and ask his mom how she slept and dreamed the next day. Because if she slept and dreamed well, I know, Ethan, we got a soundtrack, in which case the 4 of us might partner because we might be onto something.
Yeah, Ethan said it's just music, Taylor Swift, party rock anthem, jazz music, that kind of stuff. So
that's a first. I've never heard that one before, but if it works for him,
he's having a party in his brain.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, I know personally myself, I've had good experiences with the binaural beats thing. And I've said it before on the podcast, but I'll say it again while we're on the topic, is don't just go to YouTube and listen to binaural beats there, because it's compressed music. It's not pure tones. What you want to do is find an app that actually creates the pure tones itself. So it's delivering you, nice round, smooth waves, not all compressed, jagged steps. I've just found in my personal experience, when you're dealing with MP3s and the like, any sort of compressed music, it's almost like it's implanting a jitter in there as well. And it's something that you could actually measure on a scope. But I was actually, when I first started experimenting with it, I noticed that when I would take my earbuds out, and you have to do it with headphones or earbuds, is that I would get the effects of whatever frequency I was listening to, but there would be this sort of like jittery, really harsh. It's almost like I could kind of hear it in like a digital sort of realm, just acoustically in the room.
I've heard that before.
And it got to the point where it was really sort of off-putting. Yeah, it's like like nails on a chalkboard kind of thing.
Yeah, you just want to change the track.
Yeah, you just want to get out of there. And then I found an app, and I believe it's just called Binaural. I don't know if it's an app anymore, but I essentially connected with the creator of the app, and I confirmed directly with him that it's basically 2 sine wave generators that act together to create the binaural beat. And that's why his app never caused that jitteriness. So that's something I'll sort of say as a caveat there with the binaural beats.
Yo, Luke would know that. Luke would know those details.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've done some of that stuff in terms of listening to music before bed, and it does work. I'm a big fan of 432 stuff in general, but there's definitely other stuff. There's stuff in the 500 range to do with love. Again, it kind of depends on what you're looking for, right? But it worked for me. I slept deeper for sure. There's no question, 100%. In fact, and I knew it when I came out of the sleep too. I was like, whoa! I didn't even remember falling asleep. Like that's how deep it was. It's like, oh, it's morning, sunny. Oh, okay. I slept. Wow. Oh, wow. This is great. There was definitely a different feeling for sure with doing it. So I would say that it's definitely something, like you said, Chris, that people should play around with and experiment with. Is and that's the kind of the cool thing about the sound, is that like there's really no right or wrong. It's like because apparently Party Rock Anthem is is killing it. So I mean,
Yeah.
who knew, right? But
Yeah, if it works, do it. That's why experimentation is king, right?
oh yeah, definitely with a lot of things, right? And a little bit of research, and or a lot of research, depending on what kind of person you are, and yeah, and just experiment, and see what works for you, right? As I say at the beginning of every episode, take what you will, and see what works for you. And there's a reason I say that. It's because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another person, right? That's why I love when people come into my store and they're like, "Hey, you think those speakers sound good?" And I'm like, "Well, sound good relative to what?" Right? Like, to me, well, I mean,
Yeah,
me
that's
and
a good
Luke,
NLP question right there. Ryan
yeah,
unconsciously does
yeah,
it.
me
Yeah.
and Luke, me and Luke have run, $1 million sound systems. So
Yeah.
relative to me and Luke, that $500 speaker is not. Yeah, it's all right. It's good. It's good quality. But at the same time, would one that's worth more be better? Not necessarily. I've seen some that are worth more that aren't better. So I think it's all relative, and I think that's what matters. It's all relative to what you think sounds good, what frequencies vibrate with you, um, and what tones you like, right? And I think that's what you're saying, Luke, is like when you get some of that choppiness in terms of MP3s,
Mhm.
me and you, we can hear that, right? We're sensitive enough, we can hear that. We're like, wow, yeah, no, I gotta turn that off, right? Some people, if you work in an office building every day and you got a $10 ceiling speaker above your head, chances are the MP3 sounds like magic, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's all relative to um, to what sounds good to you, and so yeah, experiment for sure. Chris, Luke, do we have any more questions? Or are we good?
No, we're good there.
All right. Well, Chris, listen, man, incredible episode. Thank you so much, brother, for coming on the show, for helping share all this wealth of information and biohacks and brain amazingness with everybody. And everybody, you can check out Chris, and the ChrisWyllie Club, at the GameChangerChrisWyllie.com. Am I saying that right? Right?
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
So the GameChangerChrisWyllie.com. Check them out. Follow them on social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Chris, thank you again.
Hey guys, it's been a pleasure. I'm so grateful for you guys. I love what you're doing, rocking it on Be a Better Human. I love just tuning in and joining you guys, and it was a lot of fun to be on here. And I hope everyone got some, practical techniques that they can use to optimize their brain, help their body out, and be a better human. And that's what it's about: learning, growing, and finding out what works for you, and doing a whole lot more of it. So it's been
Yeah,
fun, guys.
amen.
We'll see you guys soon, and thanks so much again.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Luke, for doing
Thanks,
this.
brother.
Thanks for doing this with me, Luke, as we do each and every week. And everybody out there, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to myself and Luke and Chris tonight, episode 9, Be a Better Human. Everybody live, learn, love, and be a better human today. Be well, everyone.